I knew something was wrong the moment I heard the trembling in the contractor's voice. A kind of tight, breathless urgency I'd never heard from him before. And when he said the words, "Miss Carter, don't come alone, bring your family," the air around me seemed to thin until all I could hear was my own heartbeat. I was standing in the foyer of St. Bridget's Church with a paper cup of weak coffee in my hand, still dressed in my charcoal blazer from the work seminar I'd just finished. My mind emptied itself in one violent sweep. For a second, I couldn't even remember how to breathe. My grandfather's office had been locked for nearly a year. I hadn't touched a single thing inside it. That space still held the scent of cedar, old financial books, the faint aftershave he wore every morning. It was his world, and losing him had left a hollow in me big enough to swallow whole conversations. But now a stranger was telling me to come immediately, and not alone, because of something they had found behind a wall I didn't even know existed. My fingers tightened around the coffee cup until it buckled. I whispered into the phone, "What exactly did you find?" Gary exhaled hard. "Just get here. You're going to want your family with you for this." And then he hung up. I stood frozen under the stained glass glow, the church quiet except for the distant hum of the heating system. My grandfather had been gone 10 months, but just hearing his office mentioned out loud sent an ache rolling through my chest. I wasn't ready. I had never really been ready, and yet something in Gary's voice told me this wasn't about sentimental belongings or old paperwork. This was something darker, something hidden, something he hadn't expected to find. I called my parents first. Mom answered on the second ring with her usual clipped tone, already sounding annoyed before I had finished the first sentence. "You want us to come where?" she asked. Dad grabbed the phone from her. "Emily, sweetheart, it's just an office. Whatever he found, we can handle later." "He said to bring the family," I repeated. He sounded scared. Silence stretched across the line. Then Dad sighed, a weary exhale that told me they were already dreading whatever this was going to become. "Fine, 15 minutes. They hung up without another word. I drove faster than I should have. Monroe Lane appeared sooner than expected. That familiar row of tall pines lining the street like sentries. My grandfather's office sat behind the house, a converted shed painted deep green with white trim, a place where retirees came seeking help on taxes, wills, investments, anything that felt too heavy for their shoulders. He believed the elderly deserved dignity. He believed integrity wasn't a virtue, but a duty. I used to think that belief ran in our family. I didn't know yet how wrong I was. My parents pulled up as I reached the walkway. Mom's coat was buttoned tight, her mouth pinched. Dad kept rubbing his forehead as if this whole visit were an inconvenience. Before I could speak, Gary appeared from inside the office. His face was pale, his hands braced against the doorframe. "Miss Carter," he said quietly, "you need to see this." Inside, the air smelled of dust and cold wood. Boxes I had avoided touching were stacked on the floor. The bookshelf my grandfather built by hand stood along the west wall, except one section had been dragged forward several inches. Behind it, where there should have been solid drywall, a rectangular cutout revealed a narrow alcove hidden behind the structure. And inside that alcove was a small brushed steel safe bolted into the studs. "I didn't touch anything except pulling the shelf," Gary said. "It slid way too easily." That's when I realized it was on a track. My mother's voice rose sharply. "Why are we here for a safe? It's probably empty." "It's not," Gary said. "And your father didn't want anyone in the family finding it while he was alive." Dad stiffened. "What makes you say that?" Gary pointed to the inside edge of the shelf. A strip of masking tape, yellowed with time, clung near the bottom. On it, written in my grandfather's careful handwriting, "For Emily only." Mom's eyes narrowed. "For Emily? That makes no sense." But my stomach dropped. He had written those words intentionally, purposefully. And my parents clearly didn't like that one bit. I approached the safe, my hands trembling before I even reached out. The keypad blinked a soft blue. I tried the numbers I knew he cherished, his Marine Corps ID, the address of the house, the date he opened this office. Nothing worked. Then I tried the simplest thing, the combination he used for everything too sentimental to forget. My birthday. A soft click echoed through the room. The safe unlocked. Inside were 3 items: a USB drive, a thick manila envelope sealed with aged tape, and a small cluster of papers neatly clipped together with highlighted names. My parents leaned in immediately, but I stepped between them and the safe. The envelope had my name written on it in his handwriting. Emily, read alone first. The lettering wavered slightly at the end. He must have written it when his illness advanced. I swallowed hard and clutched the envelope to my chest. "We'll give you privacy," Gary said gently. But my mother snapped, "We're her parents. You should leave." I cut her off. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Something in my tone must have hit a nerve, because Mom stepped back, her face twisting as though she wanted to argue but didn't know how. They left the office reluctantly, murmuring to each other in irritated whispers, and I waited until the door shut behind them before I sat in my grandfather's old leather chair. The envelope trembled in my hands. The last time I sat in this chair, he was alive. Frail, but alive. He had pulled me close and told me not to lose myself even when the world tried to make me smaller. I should have asked him what he meant. I should have stayed longer. I peeled the tape slowly, afraid it would tear the paper inside. 3 pages slid out, front and back filled with his precise, elegant script. I inhaled once, then read. "My dearest Emily, if you are reading this, then I'm gone, and you have found the room I prayed you'd never need. But the truth cannot stay buried, not when it endangers the innocent, and you are the most innocent of all." My eyes blurred instantly. I blinked and kept reading. "I have spent the last 5 years uncovering something I could hardly believe. Your sister Anna, she is not who she pretends to be. She has stolen nearly $2 million from 6 elderly clients. She used your name, your social security number, and forged your signature to create investment accounts that ruined her victims, and your reputation, and your parents have known for 2 years." The words didn't make sense at first. They floated like fragments, impossible to connect. Anna, 2 million, my name, my SSN, my parents knew. My throat closed. I read the next lines with shaking hands. "You lost opportunities, promotions, dignity, not because of your failures, but because of the accounts she opened under your identity. She was able to do this because your mother and father helped cover her tracks, believing they were protecting the golden child. They feared what would happen to her if the truth came out, and so they allowed blame to fall on you." I gasped out loud, the sound tight and choked. My parents knew? They let me walk around humiliated? They watched me lose my job in the financial firm, listened to colleagues whisper that I was irresponsible, smiled at me with pity instead of outrage. I kept reading even as tears dropped onto the page. I hired an investigator the moment I realized the depth of what she had done. I recorded every conversation, traced every transfer, collected every forged document. The USB contains everything. You must use it. Protect the victims, and protect yourself. I could not finish this before my illness overtook me, but I believe you can. You carry the strength I always admired. My chest ached so sharply I gripped the edge of the desk. "I'm sorry I could not shield you from your own family, but I trust you to do what is right, even when it hurts. My Emily, you are the best of us. Finish what I started." It ended with his shaky initials. I pressed the letter to my chest and sobbed. Quiet, broken sobs that had been waiting years to escape. Every humiliation suddenly made sense. Every time my parents defended Anna, every time I was told don't make trouble, every time I was made to feel like I wasn't enough. They weren't protecting me. They were hiding her crimes. I don't know how long I sat there. The room felt colder, the dust heavier, the air tight like it was holding its breath for me. Eventually, I opened the USB folder. 2 directories appeared, victims and recordings. My pulse quickened. I clicked victims first. 6 names, 6 lives, 6 people my grandfather had sworn to protect, and that Anna had exploited while wearing my identity. The first file opened to a photo of an older man with a warm smile. Beneath it, a summary: Walter M. Briggs, lost $10,000. Forged documents using Emily Carter's SSN. My lungs refused to expand for several seconds. I whispered, "Oh God, what did she do?" One by one, I opened their files. Each one told a story of betrayal. Each one bore my signature, except it wasn't mine. Each one revealed another piece of the life Anna built by dismantling mine. And then I reached the last folder. A note in my grandfather's handwriting sat at the top. "Emily, this is where you start seeking justice." I sat back slowly, trembling. The truth didn't just hurt. It rearranged everything I thought I knew. My family wasn't what I believed. Anna wasn't who I believed. And I had been living in the ruins of a lie they all helped build. I looked around the office, its shadows stretching across the floor, and I felt something shift inside me. For the first time in years, the shame wasn't mine. The guilt wasn't mine. The failure wasn't mine. The truth was in my hands now, and I was going to use it. The moment I left my parents' house, I knew I wasn't going to sleep that night. Not with my mother's trembling voice echoing in my ears, not with my father's hollow stare burned into my memory, and certainly not with the envelope from my grandfather still lying unopened in my passenger seat like something alive. I gripped the steering wheel with both hands as I drove home, knuckles white, trying to steady the whirlwind gathering inside me. Fear, confusion, betrayal, they tangled together like wires sparking in the dark. When I reached my apartment, I didn't bother turning on the lights. I walked straight to the dining table, placed the envelope down gently, and sat there staring at it as if it might explode. The room felt unbearably quiet, the kind of quiet that presses against your ears until your own heartbeat feels too loud. "Just open it," I whispered, though my hands refused to move. When I finally peeled back the flap and unfolded the letter inside, my breath stilled. My grandfather's handwriting, steady but slightly wavering, filled the page. "My sweet Emily, if you're reading this, you found what I couldn't bring myself to tell you while I was alive." I pressed a hand against my chest to keep my heart from breaking through. "You carry burdens you were never meant to carry," the letter went on. "And the greatest burden you hold is believing that you deserve them." I blinked slowly, letting the words sink in. "Your sister did things you must confront. Your parents made choices that harmed you deeply. But before you face them, you need to understand the truth about yourself. You are stronger than you know. And you will need that strength for what comes next." I wiped at my eyes, unable to stop the tears. He had known how hard this would be for me. He had known what this discovery would do to my heart. "I left you the evidence not because I wanted to burden you, but because you were the only one who could be trusted to see this through. You have a way of standing firm in the truth even when it hurts. That is the Carter legacy I want carried forward." My hand trembled as I folded the letter back into the envelope. I didn't feel strong. I didn't feel steady. I felt like a child again, hurt and confused, clinging to the one person who had never lied to me. But he was gone. And now it was up to me. I exhaled shakily, dragged the USB drive across the table, and plugged it into my laptop. The blue light blinked once, as if waking from a long sleep. 2 folders appeared, victims and recordings. My chest tightened. "Start with victims," I whispered, because I knew that's what he would tell me. The first file opened to a photo of an elderly man, Walter Briggs, 82. His eyes were gentle, the kind that smiled before his mouth did. Beneath his picture, a summary detailed the fraud that had cost him more than $300,000. Stolen through a fake investment account under my name. Forged contract. Fraudulent signature. I leaned back, pressing my fingertips to my temples. It was surreal seeing my name tied to crimes I hadn't committed, like looking at a reflection that wasn't mine. I clicked the next file. Diane Holloway, 79. Her photo showed her sitting at a garden table, surrounded by potted plants. A widow, a retired librarian, her life savings, gone, in my name. I felt something tighten painfully inside me. I clicked another. Henry Loomis. I remembered him. He had always waved when he saw my grandfather outside mowing the lawn. He'd brought us a holiday tin of cookies once, the kind with powdered sugar that stuck to your fingers. His summary was worse. Not only had he lost over $400,000, but he had been denied necessary medical equipment because his credit had tanked. Credit destroyed because the accounts were under my name. My stomach twisted. My name was everywhere. My identity, my signature, my reputation, all used as tools to hurt people who trusted my grandfather, and me. How had she done this? How had she sat across from them, looked into their eyes, and lied so easily? My throat tightened as I opened the folder labeled Morris Couple. Their smiling faces stared back at me. A retired teacher and her husband. They had lost $500,000. Money meant for medical care, for their grandchildren's college funds. I covered my mouth with my hand. "This is Anna," I whispered. "This is all Anna." But the next file made my breath stutter. Eleanor Myers. She had died believing I had betrayed her. The weight of that truth landed like a stone in my chest. "I'm so sorry," I whispered to her photo, though she couldn't hear me. "You didn't deserve that." For a moment I couldn't move. The weight of the truth pressed hard against my lungs. After several long seconds, I forced myself to click the next folder, Recordings. 8 audio files appeared. The first was labeled Confrontation, Anna. My finger hovered over it. I clicked play, static, then breathing, then my grandfather's voice, weak but steady. "Anna, why did you do it?" Her voice came next, sharp, annoyed, defensive. "Stop, Grandpa, you don't understand." I stiffened, every muscle going tense. He pressed, calm, patient, heartbreak buried beneath every word, and she cracked, piece by piece. "I used her name," she snapped, "but she wasn't supposed to find out." My breath caught, my whole body froze. "I built something," she continued. "I deserved it. Emily never fights for anything. She lets people walk over her. She's weak." Weak. The word buried itself in my chest like ice. My grandfather's voice broke. "You ruined her life. She ruined her own life," Anna snarled. "She always does." Every word cut deeper. Then, she deserved it. I felt like I had been slapped. My throat tightened so painfully I had to pause the recording just to breathe. I pushed my chair back and stood, pacing the length of my apartment as adrenaline surged through me. My fingertips tingled. My breath came too fast. I felt raw, exposed, carved open. When I returned to the table, crying openly, I forced myself to restart the recording. My grandfather tried to reason with her. He reminded her of the victims. He reminded her of family. She mocked him. Then the worst part. "If this goes public," she said, "Emily goes down first. Everything is in her name. She'll get arrested long before anyone comes after me." My hands trembled violently. She had planned it. She had planned to let me take the fall. Not accidentally. Not impulsively. Intentionally. I stopped the recording again and pressed my hands over my mouth to keep from sobbing out loud. Tears streamed down my cheeks, but I made no sound. After several minutes, I returned to the laptop. There were more files, more truths, but I clicked the one labeled Parents, Argument. My father's voice came first. "Dad, please, Emily can't know, she'll fall apart." My mother, "If this gets out, Anna will crumble. We need to protect her." I felt nauseous. Protect her. Not me. Never me. "You're sacrificing Emily," my grandfather said, voice breaking. Silence. Then my father whispered, "She can handle disappointment." I covered my face and broke. broke in a way I didn't know I still could. My parents had chosen her. Over truth, over justice, over me. I sat there for what felt like hours, breathing through the devastation, letting it soak into me so thoroughly that there was no room for denial left. When I finally lifted my head again, everything looked different. The apartment, the evidence, my own reflection in the dark window. The truth didn't just break my illusions, it freed something inside me, a flame, a purpose, a resolve. I wiped my face, inhaled, and whispered, "Grandpa, I'm going to finish this." I opened my laptop and typed an email. Subject, evidence submission, urgent, to Agent Marcus Hale, FBI Financial Crimes Division. My voice no longer shook. My hands no longer hesitated. Because the truth, now fully seen, fully felt, had given me exactly what my grandfather said it would: strength, clarity, purpose, and I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of the evidence, not of my family, not of what came next. The truth was mine now, and I was ready to use it. The house was silent when I slipped inside that night, but my mind roared like a storm. I didn't bother turning on the lights. I went straight to my bedroom, closed the door, and set the USB in the center of my desk, the way someone might place a weapon they were afraid to touch. For a long time I just stared at it, the tiny black rectangle holding more weight than any object I'd ever owned. It felt alive somehow, pulsing with everything my grandfather had uncovered, with every lie my sister had fed the world, with every injustice that had wrapped around my name like barbed wire. I sat down slowly, opened my laptop, and plugged the USB in. The quiet click sounded like a key turning in a lock I couldn't undo. The screen lit up, and 2 folders appeared immediately, exactly as they had in his letter: victims and recordings. But now there was something else. A 3rd folder I hadn't noticed before. At the top, in bold letters, it read, "Start here." My chest tightened. I clicked it. Inside was a single document, nothing but a scanned note written in my grandfather's handwriting. 5 words. "Begin with compassion. You'll need it." I exhaled slowly, the breath shaky. Compassion. It felt impossibly far from me at that moment, but I understood why he wrote it. The truth ahead wasn't going to just expose Anna. It was going to tear apart the last shreds of the family I had believed in. And compassion might be the only thing that kept me from drowning in the anger rushing beneath my skin. I opened the victims folder next. 6 subfolders neatly arranged, each named with a person's full name. I clicked the first one. A picture filled my screen, an older man with bright eyes and a smile that had probably softened strangers' days. His name, Walter Briggs, 82. I remembered him faintly, a retired postal worker who lived down the street from my grandfather's house. He had brought my grandfather homemade fudge every Christmas. Below the photo was a summary of his case. Stolen, $10,000, account opened under the name Emily Carter. Social Security number match confirmed. Signature, forgery consistent with suspect AC. My throat closed. My own name, my own identity, used like a mask stolen off my face. A PDF labeled Contract sat beneath the summary. I opened it, and my breath caught in my chest. The signature at the bottom was nearly perfect. My handwriting, my curves, my loops. But it wasn't mine. I knew every line of my signature. Whoever forged it had studied me, watched me, knew exactly how to mimic me. I sat back, pressing a hand over my mouth as if that would stop the disbelief flooding my veins. I remembered the year that contract had been dated. That same month I'd applied for a credit card and been rejected without explanation. I'd told my parents. My father shrugged and said, "You must have missed something." My mother had said, "Emily, you need to grow up and manage your money better." And I had believed them, because believing them was easier than believing anyone in my family might betray me. I opened the next file. Diane Holloway, age 79. A widow with soft eyes and silver hair pinned in a bun. My grandfather's note sat attached. "She trusted the wrong face. She thought it was you." A deep ache spread across my ribs. A recorded audio file was below her documents. I clicked it. The sound of a woman crying quietly filled the room. She said she was Emily. She said your granddaughter would take care of everything. I stopped the recording so abruptly my fingers stung against the trackpad. Heat prickled the back of my neck. Anna had introduced herself as me, not just on paper, in person. My vision blurred. I closed my eyes and forced myself to breathe through it. I clicked on the third victim. Henry Loomis, 85. I froze. I knew Henry well. He had come into my office twice when I was still working at the wealth management firm. He'd been so distressed because his accounts were locked. I had sat with him, offering help, thinking he had forgotten passwords or been caught by some company error. But now I saw the truth. His summaries listed total loss, $440,000. Identity used, Emily Carter. Document signatures forged. Evidence links to suspect Anna Carter. I blinked away the tears burning my eyes. All this time Henry had looked at me with confusion, maybe even disappointment, and I had no idea that behind his eyes was a suspicion that would have broken me if I'd known. I moved to the fourth folder. Harold and Lorna Morris. A married couple in their mid-70s, smiling with their arms around each other. They had lost over $500,000. Stolen through a company Anna created, a consulting firm with my name plastered across fake brochures. A video clip was attached, a grainy camera feed from a cafe. I clicked it hesitantly. A woman sat alone at a table. A thin figure with blonde hair pulled back, wearing a mask and sunglasses. But on her wrist, the bracelet, my bracelet. Or rather, the one that Anna had begged to borrow 2 years earlier. I had thought nothing of it. The video zoomed in, confirmation written in pixels. A knot formed in my throat so tight I couldn't swallow. Fifth victim. Sofia Delgado, 81. Her funds had been wired directly to a shell company created under a fake address in New Mexico. I scrolled through the timeline and found the largest transfer, dated the exact weekend Anna had shown up to a family barbecue with a new SUV and announced she had finally hit it big. My palms shook as I closed the file. The sixth folder took me the longest to open. Eleanor Myers, 84. Gone now. She had passed away last year. Her photo showed a woman with kind eyes and a wide-brimmed sun hat. My grandfather left a voice note in her folder, made 2 months before he passed. Emily, she thought you betrayed her. She died believing that. My breath left me in a sharp, wounded gasp. I pressed a hand against my chest as if I could push the pain back inside. I stared at the 6 faces lined up on my screen. 6 lives uprooted. 6 people who had trusted my grandfather, trusted me by extension, trusted the name Carter. And Anna had taken their trust and carved it into something unrecognizable. I sat back and wiped at my eyes. The world felt smaller, heavier, warped by the gravity of what my grandfather had carried alone. I clicked the last file in the victims' directory, a compilation folder titled Photos. Inside were images of each victim standing with their families. Some were smiling, some were weary, some were leaning on canes or walkers. All of them were real, human, vulnerable. My grandfather had written small notes beside each one. She believed in goodness, protect that. He was alone, don't let him stay that way. Emily must know the truth. I closed the folder slowly, letting the weight of every word sink in. My hands were cold against the laptop. The room felt colder too. Then something caught my eye. A notebook page scanned into the USB. Handwritten, scrawled quickly, almost angrily. Anna targeted the lonely, the quiet, the trusting. She chose the ones who reminded me of myself. I sat very still, letting those last words echo. He had seen himself in the people she hurt. He had spent his life protecting them, only for his own granddaughter to become the threat. And my parents? They had chosen silence, chosen Anna, chosen the version of our family that looked perfect on the outside, no matter how rotten it grew on the inside. I looked again at the document names, at the folder titled Recordings. My heart began beating harder. I knew I needed to click it. I wasn't ready. But ready didn't matter anymore. I opened the folder. 8 audio files. 6 were tagged with the victims' names. 1 marked Parents' Argument, and the final one, Anna Confession, full recording for Emily. A chill ran through me so sharply I almost shivered. I pressed my fingertips against the trackpad and hovered over the file. I clicked play. Static crackled. Then my grandfather's voice, weak, breathless, filled the room. Anna, why did you do it? I covered my mouth with both hands as tears blurred the screen. The recording was just beginning, but I already knew. This was the turning point. The moment nothing in my life would ever be the same again. I leaned closer to the laptop, heart pounding, breath unsteady. Then her voice came through, sharp, defensive, familiar in the worst way. Grandpa, stop, you don't understand anything. And the truth, the one my grandfather had carried alone for years, unfurled in the dark room like a blade. I closed my eyes, ready to hear everything. Ready, at last, to face what my family had become. The first thing I heard when I opened the file was my grandfather's breathing. Shallow, uneven, the kind that made my throat tighten instantly. Then came his voice, thin but steady enough to cut straight through me. Anna, why did you do it? For a moment, all I could hear was the low hum of the laptop fan and my own heartbeat pulsing in my ears. Then Anna's voice burst into the silence, sharp and irritated. Grandpa, stop! You don't understand anything. I froze. Even in that single sentence, I heard every layer of her. Defensiveness, impatience, and that superiority she wore like perfume. I leaned closer to the speaker, gripping the edge of the desk. My grandfather didn't raise his voice. He never had to. I understand more than you think. There was a long pause. I imagined her sitting across from him, arms crossed, foot tapping, avoiding his eyes the way she always did when cornered. The quiet crackled between us like a live wire. You lied, he said softly. And you didn't lie to strangers. You lied to family. She scoffed. Family, please. You only ever cared about Emily. The sound of my own name from her mouth made my stomach twist. I pressed my hand over my lips to stop the sound that almost slipped out. Let's stay with the facts, he said, breath heavier now. 6 elderly clients, 6 accounts under Emily's identity. $2 million, Anna. This wasn't a mistake. Another pause, a shifting noise, a chair leg scratching the floor. Everyone makes mistakes, she snapped. You're blowing this out of proportion. Mistakes don't transfer hundreds of thousands of dollars, he answered. Mistakes don't involve forged documents and stolen social security numbers. Her voice lowered, bitter. You always take her side. My eyes burned. I didn't want to hear this, but I couldn't stop. Because she didn't do this, he said. You did. The recording crackled, and then suddenly something banged. A fist against the table, maybe. Fine, she exploded. Yes, I used her name, but she was never supposed to find out. I sucked in a breath so fast it hurt. My hands trembled uncontrollably on the desk. My grandfather didn't raise his voice, but I heard the tremor in it now, the grief. Emily has suffered because of you, he said. Her credit, her career, she lost everything, and you watched it happen. She's weak, Anna spat. She should have fought harder. She lets people walk all over her. The words sliced straight through me. I pressed a fist to my chest like that could dull the pain. She never deserved anything she got, Anna continued. She's the golden girl who always did everything right. I just took what evened things out. By taking from people who could not defend themselves? He asked sharply. By hurting those who trusted you? There was silence. Heavy. 30 seconds, maybe. Then, they have more money than they need. I covered my mouth with both hands. And you thought you deserved it, he murmured. Is that it? Her voice changed then, lower, edgier. I built something with that money, something good, something I deserve credit for. You built it using Emily's identity, he replied, using her reputation, using her name. So what? She shot back. She's too afraid to take risks. I did what she never could. His breath rattled. By ruining her. She ruins herself, Anna said. Always has. My lungs felt tight, starved. The room around me dimmed as if shrinking to a tunnel around the screen. I checked the accounts myself, he said. Every transfer, every shell company, every IP address, it all points back to you. She didn't answer. I had a handwriting expert analyze the signatures, he added quietly. They confirmed every forgery. The explosion came then, loud, harsh. Oh my God, you're unbelievable. You act like Emily is some saint while I'm what, the devil? I did what I had to. I survived. People like her don't understand survival. You hurt people, he whispered. You hurt your sister. She deserved it, Anna screamed. I jerked back from the laptop. The words echoed inside me like metal hitting concrete. She deserved it, Anna repeated, calmer now. She always got what I never did. You gave her your time, your praise, your attention. I was invisible. My grandfather exhaled, slow and full of regret. You could have told me, he said. You could have come to me for help, but you chose this. A chair creaked. Then her voice came again, icy. If you expose me, Grandpa, she goes down first. Everything is in her name. She'll be arrested before anyone even gets to me. I closed my eyes and felt nausea rise like a tide. She had planned it. Every piece, every detail. Is that your plan? He asked. Send your sister to prison for what you did? If that's what it takes, she whispered. I felt something inside me splinter, a crack straight through the foundation of who I thought Anna was. The audio clicked, shifting to another moment. His voice was weaker now. Your parents know, he said. They begged me to let this die with me. I know, she replied. There wasn't a hint of remorse in her tone. You let them blame Emily for years, he said, his voice trembling. You let her believe she was the problem. That was their choice, Anna snapped, not mine. And you didn't correct them, he said. Why should I? She said. Everything worked exactly the way it should. I felt heat rise behind my eyes. My jaw clenched so tight it hurt. Then her voice dropped, quiet, almost smug. And Emily? She'll never stand up for herself. She never has. My grandfather's voice came back, thin but steady. She will, he said. She scoffed. No, she won't. She's pathetic. No, he replied. She's kind and brave and stronger than you will ever understand. Something slammed in the recording, a hand hitting the table. Anna's voice rose again, high and wild. She's nothing. She's always been nothing. And she'll stay nothing as long as everyone keeps believing I'm the successful one. The next sound was unexpected, soft, broken. My grandfather was crying. The sound of it shattered something inside me. For years, he whispered, I watched you become someone I don't recognize. But this? Hurting people who trusted our name? Betraying your own blood? I failed you somehow. I see that now. You failed me? She said, voice suddenly cold. No. I did what I had to do because no one ever saw me. No one ever chose me. I chose the truth, he whispered. She exhaled sharply, a frustrated, angry burst. You're sick, she said. Why are you doing this now? Because Emily is innocent, he said. Because someone needs to protect her. Oh, please, she said. She'll never know. She will, he said. I've left her everything. There was a scrape of metal. Maybe she stood. You expect her to do something with it? She asked. She'll crumble. She's weak. No, he whispered. You are. The recording clicked off with a final hum, leaving me in silence so complete I felt hollow. I sat there for a long moment, staring at the laptop as if it might offer me answers. Tears blurred the screen as I leaned back in the chair, letting the weight of everything settle over me. It was worse than I imagined, deeper, colder, more intentional. My sister hadn't just stolen money. She had stolen trust, stolen dignity, stolen my life. And my parents knew. The next file blinked up on the screen. Parents, full argument. My hand hovered over it, shaking. Part of me didn't want to know, didn't want to peel back the final layer of betrayal. But another part, the part my grandfather believed in, knew I had to. I clicked play. My father's voice came through first, tense and low. "Dad, please, Emily can't know. She'll fall apart." My mother added sharply, "If this gets out, it destroys us. Anna made a mistake. We can fix it quietly." My grandfather responded, voice trembling, "You're protecting the wrong child." His words struck like a thunderclap. My mother's voice rose, "We are protecting the family." "You're sacrificing Emily," he said. "We're saving Anna," my father snapped. A long pause, then the soft scrape of a chair. "You two are blind," my grandfather said. "You always have been." The file ended abruptly, as if he'd shut off the recorder in disappointment. I sat there in the dim office, light from the laptop washing across my face. Every piece of the truth pressed against me, sharp as glass. The ceiling seemed lower, the air heavier. My family wasn't just fractured, it had been broken for years. And I had been the only one who didn't know. I wiped my tears with the back of my hand, straightened in the chair and pulled the laptop closer. There were more recordings waiting, more truths. But I wasn't the same woman I had been this morning. I wasn't the Emily who shrank under doubt or carried shame that wasn't mine. My grandfather saw something in me, trusted something in me. And now I could feel it rising like a slow burn in my chest. Strength, resolve, purpose. I clicked the next file. Victim Testimonies, full compilation. As the first voice began to play, I leaned forward, not as the broken daughter my parents underestimated, but as the woman my grandfather believed I could be. The woman ready to finish what he started. I didn't sleep that night. I don't think I even lay down. I spent the first hour pacing from my kitchen to the living room, the USB clenched in my hand like a piece of shrapnel I couldn't put down. By sunrise, my apartment felt too small, too tight, too full of ghosts I hadn't invited. So I carried my laptop and the files to the dining table and spread everything out. The notes, the recordings, the printed summaries. It looked like the aftermath of a storm my grandfather had tried to contain alone. I sat down, pulled my hair into a loose knot, and whispered to the empty room, "Let's start." My laptop hummed awake. The USB connected with a soft click, and the numbers, the documents, the transfers I'd only skimmed the day before suddenly formed a map, one so monstrous and deliberate I felt my stomach tighten the deeper I looked. I opened the Excel file again, Anna transferred all final.xlsx. Rows and rows of transactions glowed back at me, 67 in total. My eyes tracked the patterns, dates, amounts, account numbers. At first they seemed random, but as I cross-referenced them with my grandfather's notes, a picture emerged. My breath caught. Almost all the transfers were made on dates important in my own life. Days I'd been working late. Days I'd been traveling for conferences. Days my parents had called with some excuse to check on where I was. Every time I wasn't home, Anna moved money. It wasn't chaos. It was strategy. And at the bottom of the spreadsheet, highlighted in red, was the transfer that made the back of my neck go cold. $190,000. Desert Sun Credit Union. Shell account, Cielo Azul Financial Group. The date next to it was 8 days after my grandfather's funeral. I sat back, pressing my fingers against my temples. She hadn't stopped, even when we were burying him. She'd kept stealing while I was helping my mother choose the flowers for the service. Kept stealing while I was cleaning out his bedroom drawers with shaking hands. Kept stealing while I was crying at his graveside. A grief so sharp it bordered on rage surged through me. I opened the next tab in the file, Location History. There it was, A New Mexico address for the shell company. And beside it, another name I didn't recognize at first. Desert Sun Credit Union. But the moment I typed the name into Google Maps, my breath stilled. The bank sat in a remote area 20 miles outside Albuquerque, a place you wouldn't go unless you needed privacy or distance, a place Anna had been. I minimized the browser and opened my email archives. I searched for old family messages, anything that could show where Anna had been the past few years. A dozen photos popped up: vacation trips, brunch outings, spontaneous solo self-care retreats. 3 years ago, a selfie of Anna at an airport with the caption, "Last-minute getaway, I need a break." The timestamp was the same day the first major fraudulent transfer occurred. 4 years ago, a picture of her at a rooftop restaurant in Tempe, Arizona, wine glass raised. The date matched the second transfer. 2 years ago, a cryptic caption, "Sometimes you need to get out of town to find clarity." The location tag, Albuquerque. It was a breadcrumb trail she probably thought was harmless, but every post lined up perfectly with the stolen money. I sat back slowly. My hands trembled, but not with fear this time, with clarity. She'd been hiding in plain sight, and I had never seen it, not because I was blind, but because I trusted the wrong people. Around mid-morning, sunlight filtered across the table, illuminating a stack of old journals I used to keep. On impulse, I pulled one out and opened it to an entry from last year. April 17th, I applied for the branch manager position today. HR looked at me strangely. Mom said I was imagining it. I flipped the page. May 8th, turned down, credit risk, again. I don't understand how my credit keeps dropping. Another page. June 2nd, Dad said maybe I'm not good with money. Maybe he's right. I'm tired. I closed the journal with shaking hands. For years, I had blamed myself for every failure, every denied promotion, every warning at work about financial red flags. All the while, Anna had been using my identity to drain accounts, and my parents had allowed it, quiet and complicit. I opened my credit report next. The numbers stared back at me like bruises. 7 accounts I had never opened. All delinquent, all stemming from shell companies tied to Anna's trail. I felt a surge of nausea so sudden I had to grip the table. My chest tightened. Breath stuck somewhere between disbelief and fury. I remembered sitting in the HR office at my previous job, the way the manager tried not to meet my eyes when she said, "We're sorry, Emily." I remembered the humiliation, the panic, the night I cried on the bathroom floor because I felt like a failure, and the whole time, it wasn't me, it was her. I needed air. I grabbed my keys, stepped outside, and drove to the park near Greenview Lake. The air was crisp, pine-scented, raw with winter. I sat on a bench overlooking the water, let the cold bite my cheeks, let my breathing steady. I wasn't going to break. Not now, not with the truth finally in my hands. By early afternoon, I returned to the dining table and opened the last stack of documents my grandfather had compiled. Bank statements, receipts, handwritten timelines. At the very bottom of the pile was a note I hadn't seen before. My grandfather's handwriting again, the letters rushed and uneven. "Emily, start with the Arizona Trail. It leads to everything." I followed his instruction. The Arizona transactions pointed to an Airbnb rental used twice in the same year. I zoomed into the booking details. The reservation had been made using a throwaway email, but the profile picture, small, nearly unnoticeable, showed a familiar gold hoodie with embroidered initials. I had given that hoodie to Anna for Christmas when she was 22. My fingers trembled as I clicked through the files. Another transaction, another city, another hotel. I typed the address into Google, this time in Tempe. A new shell company was registered there, Horizon Trust Advisors. My breath caught. That name had appeared in several victim files. I opened the victim summaries again and matched the dates. The Morris couple, Sofia Delgado. Every single transfer led back to Anna. By evening, my table looked like an investigative command center. Lines drawn across pages, circles, highlights, arrows connecting her movements, her aliases, her companies. but one page lay separate from the rest. A page my grandfather had printed and annotated heavily. A credit report. My own. He had circled one section in blue ink. Account, Foster Financial Group, Director Emily Carter. Below it he had written, "She doesn't know this exists." Then, in red ink, Anna forged the business license, all losses tied to Emily's identity. I pressed a hand to my mouth. He had been fighting for me long before I knew I needed defending. When the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the walls in orange shadows, I found myself staring at another note in his handwriting, wedged between bank statements. "It all ends when she slips. She will. They always do." I read it 3 times. He had believed Anna's arrogance would be her undoing. And he was right. One of the transfer slips from New Mexico, dated only 9 months ago, carried a detail she hadn't noticed. A signature. Not Emily Carter. Not even a forged version of my name. It was sloppy, rushed, signed by her real hand. The biggest mistake she had made. I picked up the slip, holding it to the light. That single signature, just 5 seconds of carelessness, was enough to unravel everything she had built. My grandfather had marked it with a star. I felt tears prick my eyes for the 100th time that day. Not out of sadness, but out of awe for the man he was. Sick, dying, barely able to stand, and still fighting with the precision of someone who refused to let injustice live another day. My phone buzzed then, a message from an unknown number. "Stop digging, Emily. You don't know what you're doing." My skin crawled. I set the phone down slowly, forcing myself not to throw it across the room. It could have been Anna, or my mother, or my father, or someone connected to the shell companies. But it didn't matter who it was, because I wasn't stopping. Night had fallen when I finally opened the last envelope in my grandfather's stack. A soft manila one I hadn't noticed before, tucked inside the cover of a ledger he'd kept from the early days of his business. Inside was a single slip of paper. "Jack Harmon can help if I don't make it." My breath caught. Jack Harmon, his former colleague, a retired fraud investigator. A man I had met once as a child, but barely remembered. I searched for the number, flipping through papers until it fell out of a folded legal document. I picked up my phone and dialed before I could second-guess myself. A rough, steady voice answered. "Emily? I wondered when you'd call." I froze. You knew I would?" "Yes," he said. "Your grandfather told me everything. I've been waiting." My hand shook as I held the phone tighter. "Can you help me?" "Yes," he said without hesitation. "But before you come, there's something you need to see." "What is it?" A pause. Then, "Evidence your grandfather didn't have time to analyze. Evidence Anna didn't know he found. Meet me tomorrow." The call ended. I remained at the table long after the line went dead, surrounded by the truth, surrounded by the lives she had damaged, by the life she had stolen from me. And for the first time in years, I felt something steady rise in my chest. Not fear, not grief, resolve. My grandfather had left me a path, and tomorrow I would take the next step, whatever it cost. The next morning, I drove to Greenview Lake with a knot in my stomach that no amount of deep breathing could loosen. The winter sun cast a pale shimmer across the water, the kind of cold light that looked beautiful from a distance, but felt sharp the moment it touched your skin. Jack Harmon told me to meet him at a small cafe near the shoreline, a place my grandfather used to love, and as soon as I stepped inside, I spotted him. He was sitting alone in the back corner, a tall, broad-shouldered man with silver hair combed neatly away from a lined, weathered face. He wore the kind of coat you buy once and keep for 20 years, the fabric thick, the seams still strong. He didn't smile when he saw me. He simply nodded, stood, and held out his hand. "Emily," he said in a low voice that carried decades of authority, "you look just like your grandfather said you would." I swallowed hard. "You knew I'd come?" "I knew you would have no choice." His eyes, clear, sharp, and impossibly steady, held mine a beat too long, like he was measuring what kind of fight I had in me. Then he gestured to the chair across from him. "Sit, we have a lot to cover." The server approached to take my order, but I shook my head. My stomach couldn't handle anything heavier than air. Jack waited until she walked away before pulling a large envelope from the inside of his coat. He slid it across the table. "Your grandfather gave me this the last day I saw him," he said. "He told me not to open it unless you contacted me, said it wasn't mine to see." My breath caught. I stared at the envelope like it might burn me if I touched it. "Why did he trust you?" I asked softly. Jack leaned back, fingers drumming lightly on the table. "Your grandfather and I worked together for over 15 years. Fraud investigation, mostly cases involving seniors. He was the kind of man who didn't just do his job, he carried people's burdens like they were his own. When he came to me about Anna, he was broken, Emily. Not physically, emotionally. He couldn't understand how it happened under his roof." My throat tightened. "Neither can I." Jack nodded slowly. "That's why we're here." I took a breath and opened the envelope. Inside were photographs, bank documents, scribbled notes, and one USB drive I didn't recognize. My grandfather's handwriting appeared on the corner of a folded page. "Anna's slip-up, the one that ties everything together." My pulse quickened. Jack pointed to the top photo. "This is from a cafe security camera outside Phoenix. Your grandfather couldn't prove the woman in the photo was Anna, but I can." I leaned closer. The image showed a slim blonde wearing sunglasses and a mask. Her head was slightly turned away, but the background was familiar. A high-end coffee shop Anna used to rave about years ago. "What makes you sure it's her?" I asked. Jack slid another image beside it. A zoomed-in shot of Anna's phone case. Rose gold with a marbled pattern and a small gold initial charm. The exact one Anna had posted online 3 years earlier. "These scammers love to think they're smart," Jack said quietly. "But ego is a curse. They can't resist showing off." I stared at the photo, feeling the weight of all the years I'd spent defending her. "She used my identity," I whispered. "She let my credit get destroyed. She let me take the blame." Jack didn't look away. "And she did it knowing you'd never fight back. She counted on you being quiet." I clenched my fists under the table. "Your grandfather told me something," he added. "Said he trusted you to finish what he was too sick to complete." My chest ached. "He shouldn't have had to do any of this alone." "He didn't," Jack said. "He had me. And now you have me." I exhaled shakily, trying to steady myself, but Jack reached into the envelope again and pulled out another file. "This," he said, "is the biggest oversight Anna ever made." He placed a page on the table, a bank authorization form from Desert Sun Credit Union. The signature line didn't say Emily Carter. It didn't even try to mimic me. It said Anna C., sloppy, rushed, probably signed because she thought no one would ever see it. My grandfather had circled it in red. "How did he find this?" I whispered. "He spent hundreds of hours tracking every shell company she created," Jack replied. "He wasn't just looking at your parents' house, he was digging across 3 states. My head dropped, overwhelmed by the magnitude of his effort. He shouldn't have had to carry that alone. Jack's face softened. He didn't want to put the weight on you while he still had time. He told me once, "Emily carries guilt that isn't hers. I won't add to it until she can fight back." Tears blurred my vision. That sounded exactly like him. I flipped through the rest of the file, company registrations, routing numbers, receipts, overlapping dates. Each piece pointing to Anna, each piece linking her fraud to my ruined credit and the 6 stolen lives my grandfather had fought to defend. But then I found something else. A recording transcript. At the top, parents. Second conversation. "Second," I whispered. "I only heard one." Jack nodded grimly. "Your grandfather recorded them twice. The second one, he didn't add it to the USB because he wasn't sure you were ready, but he gave it to me." He pushed another paper across the table. I stared at the words, reading the transcript with growing disbelief. Mom, we can't let this come out. Emily will cause a scene and Anna will crumble. Dad, we just need Emily to stop asking questions. If she keeps thinking everything is her fault, this stays contained. Mom, she's always been easier to manage. Dad, Anna couldn't handle prison. Emily can handle disappointment. My breath stumbled. Handle disappointment. Like that wasn't the story of my entire life. A sound escaped me, half laugh, half sob. They used me, Jack nodded. Your grandfather wrote a note at the bottom. Look. I read the line, penned in shaking handwriting. They sacrificed her to protect the child who hurt everyone. My chest felt tight, burning with betrayal I didn't yet know how to process. Emily, Jack said quietly, your grandfather didn't gather all this to punish your family. He did it to free you. I wiped my eyes furiously. So what do I do now? You call the FBI, he said simply, and you prepare. Prepare for what? For the truth to finally break everything open. I swallowed hard. I don't know if I'm strong enough. You will be, he said. Your grandfather believed that, and so do I. The server brought coffee to the table, even though neither of us had ordered it. She smiled warmly, unaware of the storm I felt inside. Jack waited until she left before speaking again. There's one more thing, he said. He reached into the envelope one last time and pulled out a black flash drive. It was heavier than the others, with a metal casing and a small sticker on the back with my grandfather's initials. He recorded something he didn't want anyone else to hear, Jack explained. Not me, not your parents, not even Anna. What is it? His last message to you. My throat closed. Why didn't he give it to me before he died? He said you weren't ready, Jack said gently. He said you needed the full truth first. My hands shook as I took the flash drive, gripping it like it was the last piece of him I had left. When you're ready, Jack said, listen to it. I nodded, but my eyes screamed the truth. I wasn't ready at all. We spent another hour at the cafe going over documents, trying to form a clear timeline. By noon, my head felt like it was filled with smoke. Every page revealed more of Anna's lies, more of my parents' complicity, more of the burden my grandfather had carried alone. As we got up to leave, Jack placed a firm hand on my shoulder. You're not alone in this, he said. I'll stand with you when the time comes. Your grandfather made me promise. I swallowed the lump in my throat and nodded. Thank you. Outside, the cold air hit me like a wave. I stood beside my car, breathing hard, gripping the flash drive so tightly the edges bit into my palm. The lake shimmered in the distance, sunlight catching on its surface like scattered glass. My grandfather had believed I could do this. Jack believed I could do this. And somewhere under the fear and exhaustion, I realized I believed it too. When I got home, I placed the new flash drive beside my laptop and stared at it for several minutes before whispering, "Not yet." There was a knock at my door. I jumped, my heart slamming against my ribs. When I opened it, no one was there, just a plain white envelope on the welcome mat. I picked it up, hands trembling. Inside was a single sheet of paper with 4 words typed in the center. Stop before it's too late. I looked up sharply, scanning the hallway. No one. No footsteps, no sound. But the message was clear. Someone knew what I was doing, and someone was terrified of what I was about to uncover. I closed my door, locked every bolt, and leaned my forehead against the wood. I wasn't stopping. Not now. Not after everything my grandfather risked. Not after everything she stole. The truth was coming, and I was going to be the one to bring it into the light. Agent Marcus Hale's voice was calm when he told me to take a seat, but nothing inside me felt calm. Not my heartbeat, not my breath, not the way my fingers tightened around the strap of my purse as I sat in the small conference room inside the Seattle FBI field office. The walls were pale gray, the table steel, the lights bright enough to sting my eyes. Everything felt clinical, stripped of warmth, so different from my grandfather's office where truth grew slowly and carefully, like something tended. Marcus closed the door behind him and took the chair across from me. He looked to be in his late 40s, with the steady posture of someone who'd seen too much and let none of it touch his composure. He folded his hands on the table. "Miss Carter," he said, "your grandfather contacted us 8 months before he passed." The words hit me like cold water. I straightened. "He contacted the FBI?" "Yes," Marcus said gently. "And he sent us evidence. Not everything, you have the full set, but enough for us to start watching the situation. He wanted us ready if his condition worsened before he could finish the case." My throat tightened. I pictured my grandfather alone in his office, fighting cancer, gathering recordings, building timelines, and all the while preparing for a day he feared would come too soon. "Why didn't he tell me?" I whispered. Marcus held my gaze. "Because he knew you weren't safe as long as your sister believed she could get away with everything. He wanted to protect you. And he wanted the truth airtight before he brought you in." I swallowed hard, forcing myself not to break down. "He shouldn't have had to deal with this alone." "He didn't," Marcus said. "He had an investigator, Jack Harmon. And he had us. What he didn't have was time." The ache in my chest sharpened, but I nodded for him to continue. Marcus opened a thin binder. Inside were several printed pages, highlighted and annotated, the same evidence I had spent 3 days sorting through, but reorganized with ruthless clarity. "Your grandfather's evidence is strong," he said, "very strong. But for us to prosecute a case like this, we need a direct admission or a reaction from the suspect that corroborates the material. Financial crimes involving family are particularly tricky." "She'll deny everything," I said quietly. Marcus nodded. "We know, but she has a pattern. Your grandfather identified it, and we've confirmed it. She becomes arrogant when confronted, defensive, careless." Yes, that was Anna, sharp-tongued, brimming with entitlement, convinced consequences were for other people. "So, what do you need from me?" I asked. "To set the trap," Marcus replied. A chill ran up my spine. "Trap?" He leaned forward slightly. "You need to confront her, not alone. With your parents present, with all evidence arranged in escalating order. Let her feel in control. Let her think you're emotional, unprepared, overwhelmed. These kinds of perpetrators make mistakes when they underestimate their challengers." I stared at him, my pulse rising. "You want me to confront my family? In person?" "We'll be close by," he said, "within seconds. But yes, you'll need to walk them through the evidence. Your sister's guilt, your parents' complicity, every detail." A tremor ran through my hands. "She'll explode." "Exactly," Marcus said. "That's when she'll incriminate herself." I pressed my palms to my knees, grounding myself. "My parents, what about them?" "We believe they have obstructed the truth," Marcus answered. "But unless they voluntarily confess, our priority is the primary offender first. We need their presence, though. Family dynamics intensify reactions. They might even push her to admit more than she intends." My stomach twisted. The idea of facing all 3 of them, my mother's denial, my father's manipulative calm, Anna's venom, felt suffocating. But then I remembered the victims' faces. Walter, Diane, Henry, the Morris couple, Sophia, Eleanor. And I remembered how my grandfather's voice shook when he confronted Anna in that recording. The truth mattered. Justice mattered. And now it depended on me. "What do I need to do?" I asked. Marcus opened another folder and slid it toward me. "We've prepared a timeline for you to follow. Start with the victims, move to the forged signatures. Then the shell companies, then the IP logs, and finally..." He paused. "The recordings." My breath caught at the thought of playing those in front of my mother and father. In front of Anna. "Will they know you're nearby?" I asked. "No," Marcus said. We'll be off-site in an unmarked vehicle. When she incriminates herself, you'll send us the signal." "What signal?" "A text message," he said. "Just one word, now." I nodded slowly, feeling the weight of every second tighten around me. "Emily," he said softly, "your grandfather believed you could do this. He trusted your integrity. He trusted your strength." My eyes burned hot. "I'm scared," I admitted. "That's how we know you're ready," he said. "People who don't understand the weight of truth rush into it without caution. You're doing the opposite." He stood. "Take the day to prepare. Reach out when you set the meeting." I left the FBI building without fully remembering the walk. My mind felt heavy, like it was dragging 1,000 pounds behind me. Outside, the winter wind cut across my cheeks, clearing my head just enough to remind me what had to come next. I drove to my parents' house on Oak Ridge Drive. The house looked the same as it always had. Perfectly trimmed lawn, shutters painted a cheerful navy blue, wreath on the door. It was the kind of house that smiled at neighbors and hid everything behind closed doors. Dad opened the door before I knocked, his eyebrows pulled together. "Emily, this is a surprise." "We need to talk," I said. His smile dropped faster than any mask I'd ever seen him wear. "About what?" "About Grandpa's office, and what he left behind." A flicker of panic moved through his eyes so quickly I might have missed it if I hadn't spent the last few days studying lies. Mom appeared behind him, arms folded. "Emily, whatever you think you found—" "It's not what you think," Dad finished. I clenched my jaw. "You don't even know what I'm going to say." Mom's voice trembled just slightly. "Anna told us you were confused." Confused. The word made something bitter rise in my chest. "I'm not confused," I said evenly. "But I need you and Anna to come to Grandpa's office Saturday evening, 6 o'clock. Mom stiffened. Dad froze. "For what purpose?" he asked. "There's something you need to hear," I said softly. "Something he left for all of us." Mom stepped forward, her voice hissing. "Emily, let this go. For once in your life, just leave it alone." Dad shot her a sharp look, realizing too late she'd said too much. I stared at her. "And why would I do that?" Her face twisted. "Because digging will destroy our family." I felt something settle inside me then, something firm, unshakable. I met her eyes and said, "The family was already destroyed. I'm just discovering how." They said nothing. They didn't have to. I left them standing in the doorway, their carefully curated world beginning to crack. That night, I drafted the family message. Saturday, 6 p.m., Grandpa's office, mandatory. Anna responded 40 minutes later. "Can we make it Sunday? I'm busy," I typed my reply. "No, Saturday." She didn't write back. Later that night, unable to sleep, I sat alone in my apartment with all the evidence spread out on the table. The photos, the bank trails, the recordings, the forged signatures. Everything I would need to expose her. Everything that would finally set the truth free. I opened my grandfather's flash drive again, the final message Jack had given me but I hadn't yet listened to. The metal casing felt cold against my fingers. Part of me wanted to hear his voice. Another part wanted to wait, fearing the ache it might bring. I placed it carefully beside my laptop. "Tomorrow," I whispered, "after the confrontation." My phone buzzed once. A text from Marcus. "We'll be ready. Bring strength, bring clarity, bring truth." I stared at the message until the words burned into my mind. Then I turned off the lights and sat in the dark, the silence thick, the weight of what was coming settling into my bones. Tomorrow I would face them. Tomorrow the truth would finally breathe. Tomorrow everything would change. The sky was darkening into a bruised blue when I unlocked my grandfather's office that Saturday evening. The air inside was cold, the kind that sinks into your bones, but it smelled faintly of cedar and ink. His scent, one I hadn't realized I missed until it wrapped around me like a fragile goodbye. I turned on the desk lamp, its soft glow settling over the stacks of documents. The laptop, the USB drives arranged exactly as I'd prepared them hours earlier. 6 o'clock was approaching fast. I could feel it in my pulse, in the tightness behind my ribs, in the tremor I kept pushing out of my fingers. But beneath the nerves was something harder, steadier. Resolve. Not anger, not yet. Something quieter, deeper. A certainty that the truth, even when brutal, was still mine to carry forward. A car door slammed outside, then another. Their voices came next, muffled by the thin office walls. My parents' footsteps, Anna's sharper ones behind them. For a split second I closed my eyes and inhaled slowly. "Grandpa," I whispered, "I hope you're with me." There was a knock. I didn't answer. I just said, "Come in." Dad opened the door, looking uneasy in a way I'd never seen before, as if every inch of him was bracing for something he couldn't control. Mom stepped in behind him, her lips drawn tight, her eyes darting nervously from the files on the desk to the laptop screen. And Anna. She entered last, arms folded, chin lifted, face painted in that familiar blend of superiority and irritation. "Can we make this quick?" she said, tossing her purse onto a chair. "I have dinner plans." I stared at her. Really stared. She looked polished, confident, unbothered, but she also looked like a stranger. Dad cleared his throat. "Emily, sweetheart, this atmosphere, whatever this is, it's unnecessary." Mom stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Please don't make a scene." A bitter laugh slipped out before I could stop it. "A scene? Is that what you think this is?" Anna clicked her tongue. "Oh my God, you dramatic people." I raised a hand. "Sit." My voice sounded nothing like me. It sounded steady, firm, certain, and it startled all of them. Dad sat first. Mom reluctantly followed. Anna hesitated for a moment, then rolled her eyes and dropped into the chair closest to the bookshelf. I took my seat behind my grandfather's desk. "This," I said quietly, "is about Grandpa." Mom's expression softened instantly. "Oh, sweetheart," Anna interrupted. "If this is about his documents, I told you you're overreacting." "It's not about documents," I said. "It's about what he found before he died." That silenced the room. I clicked the laptop. The first folder appeared on the screen. Victims. 6 names, 6 faces. I turned the laptop so they could all see it. "What is this?" Dad asked, frowning. "The people Anna stole from," I said softly. Mom sucked in a sharp breath. Anna scoffed. "What are you even talking about?" 6 elderly clients," I said. 6 people who trusted our family name. 6 people who believed they were meeting with me. 6 people whose accounts were drained using my identity. Dad shook his head slowly. "Emily, that's impossible," Mom finished. "Your sister would never—" I clicked the first victim file. Walter Briggs's gentle face filled the screen. "Walter lost $310,000, I said. "The contract was signed Emily Carter, except I never met him. Anna did." Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Dad leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Anna crossed her legs and let out an exaggerated sigh. "Emily, are you seriously basing all this on, what, some random files you dug up?" "These aren't random," I said quietly. "Grandpa collected them. He documented everything." Her expression faltered just slightly. "He even found video footage." I opened the small cafe clip. "Here's you—" "That's not me," she snapped. I zoomed in on the phone case. "The rose gold case? The one you posted on Instagram?" A flicker of panic flashed in her eyes. Dad shifted uncomfortably. "Anna, what is this?" She raised her chin. "Coincidence." "Let's try another," I said, opening the Morris couples folder. $500,000 stolen. Transfers processed while you were on your self-care retreats. Dates matched your travel photos," Mom whispered. "Anna!" "I didn't do anything," Anna shouted. "Emily's twisting everything." But her voice was cracking. I opened the next file. Sophia Delgado, then Eleanor Myers. With each click, I watched the denial drain from Dad's face. Mom began shaking her head slowly, as if trying to blink away the truth. Anna slammed her hand on the desk. "This proves nothing. Anyone could have used her identity." "Oh, I agree," I said softly. "Anyone could have forged my signature, but only one person made a mistake." I slid the highlighted transfer slip across the table. Dad picked it up, his face drained of color. Mom covered her face with both hands. Anna didn't move, because she recognized it. Her signature, not mine. "Where did you get that?" she whispered, voice trembling. "Grandpa found it," I said. "He circled it. He knew this was the key." He wasn't well," she stammered. "You can't trust anything I clicked the folder labeled recordings. Her mouth snapped shut. "No," she said. "Emily, no." Dad looked at her sharply. "Recordings?" Mom's voice cracked. "What were you recorded saying?" I hit play. Grandpa's voice filled the room. "Anna, why did you do it?" Mom gasped. Dad went still. Anna froze, eyes wide like a startled animal. Her voice came next, defiant, angry. "Grandpa, stop, you don't understand anything." The room went dead silent. Every word spilled through the speakers, turning the air into glass. Her admission, her arrogance, her hatred of me, her insistence that the elderly had more money than they needed. Her confession that she used my identity, my social security number, my reputation, her sneer, her venom, her lack of remorse, her final explosive words. "She deserved it. Emily deserved it." Mom let out a choked cry. Dad stared at Anna as if seeing her for the first time. Anna shot to her feet. "He manipulated me. He twisted everything." I closed the laptop softly. "No more lies," I said. "He recorded you multiple times. And he recorded you bragging about ruining my credit, destroying my job prospects, costing me my promotion, letting my life fall apart so yours could look better." Dad whispered, "Anna, please tell me this isn't real." She shook her head violently. "It isn't. Emily's framing me." "I didn't gather this," I said firmly. "Grandpa did. Over years, while dying." That broke something in Mom. She pressed a trembling hand to her chest. "Why would you do this?" she whispered to Anna. "To your sister? To those poor people?" Anna's face twisted with desperation. "Because I never mattered to any of you. You always loved her more." Dad shot to his feet. "That is not true." "Yes, it is," she screamed. "You gave her everything. You praised her. You bragged about her. And what did I get? Comparison, pressure, nothing was ever enough." Mom sobbed. "Stealing from old people wasn't the solution." "I didn't steal," she shrieked. "I borrowed." $2 million, I shouted back. "You stole $2 million. Her eyes snapped to mine, wide, frantic, unhinged. "You deserved it," she spat. "You always thought you were better than me. Perfect Emily, the responsible one, the sweet one, the soft one." "You framed me," I said, voice low. She stepped closer, trembling with rage. "You were too weak to fight back." She didn't see my phone in my hand, didn't see me type the word. "Now." Didn't hear the quiet vibration confirming its sent. She leaned closer, teeth clenched, voice dropping to a hiss. "And if I had to do it again, I would." The door burst open. 2 FBI agents stepped inside. Anna froze. Mom screamed. Dad stumbled backward. The agents spoke in calm, authoritative voices. "Anna Carter, you are under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and elder exploitation." Anna's face contorted. No, this is wrong. Emily, tell them. But her words dissolved into sobs as the handcuffs clicked around her wrists. She thrashed. They steadied her. "I hate you," she screamed at me. "I hate you. You ruined my life." I didn't move. "You ruined your own," I said quietly. The agents let her out. Her screams echoed down the hallway, twisting, cracking, then fading into the cold evening outside. When the office door finally shut behind them, silence fell so heavy it felt like a physical thing. Mom sank into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably. Dad stared at the closed door, his face pale, hollow. I stood very still, my hands shaking only slightly, my heart pounding, but steady. The truth had finally broken free. And my grandfather's voice, his strength, his faith, seemed to linger in the air around me. I whispered, "It's done." But I knew it wasn't. Not yet. Justice had begun. But healing, that would take longer. And my family, what was left of it, would never be the same again. The house was silent when I walked inside that night, but the silence didn't feel peaceful. It felt hollow, like someone had scooped out the center of my life and left the shell behind. I dropped my keys on the entry table and stood there for a moment, staring at the framed photo of my grandfather hanging near the staircase. His smile, warm and steady, looked like a lighthouse in a storm I hadn't known was coming. "I did it," I whispered to him. "I did what you asked." But the words tasted bittersweet. Justice had begun, yes. The truth was out. Anna was in custody. The evidence was in the hands of the FBI. Yet I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel victorious. I felt cracked open, raw, shaken in a way that went deeper than fear or anger. It went straight into the part of me that had always believed family meant safety. I walked to the living room and sat on the couch, pulling the blanket my grandmother had knitted years ago over my lap. The house hummed with its usual night sounds, the heater clicking on, the refrigerator humming. But tonight, everything felt strange, unfamiliar. I replayed the confrontation again and again in my head. My mother's sobs, my father's disbelief. Anna's screams, raw, furious, terrified. The way her face twisted when the agents cuffed her. The way she spat hatred at me like poison she couldn't stop swallowing. None of it made me feel triumphant. Instead, all I felt was grief. Because despite everything she had done, she was still my sister. Despite everything my parents hid, they were still my parents. I pressed the heel of my hand against my eyes, trying to stop the tears before they came. But they came anyway, slowly at first, then harder, choking, shaking tears that racked through me. I curled forward, clutching the blanket like it could hold me up. When the tears finally slowed, I wiped my face and forced myself to breathe steadily. I needed sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw the look on Anna's face. Not the hateful one, the other one. The flash of fear when she realized her world was coming apart. It haunted me. I moved to my desk and opened my laptop. The message from Agent Hale was waiting. "Anna is safely in custody. She requested a lawyer. Interrogation will occur Monday morning. Thank you for your courage today. We will update you soon." I stared at the message for a long time. Courage. I didn't feel brave. I felt tired, exhausted, and more alone than I had ever felt. But there was one thing left to do tonight. One thing I had been avoiding. One thing my grandfather left for me alone. I reached for the black flash drive, the one Jack Harmon had given me at the cafe, the one with my grandfather's initials, the one containing a message he had recorded that no one else was meant to hear. I plugged it into the laptop. My hand hovered over the audio file. "Not yet," I whispered to myself, but I knew there was no turning back. I clicked play. Static crackled softly, then cleared, and then his voice. "My sweet girl, if you're listening to this, I'm already gone." I closed my eyes, pressing a hand to my mouth as fresh tears pooled. I wanted to wait until I could speak to you in person, but the truth is, I didn't want my illness to rob you of clarity. I needed you to hear this when you were strong enough to carry it. His breathing was labored. I pictured him in his recliner, blanket over his lap, medical equipment humming behind him. I pictured him holding the recorder with trembling hands. "Emily, you were always the one who tried to do the right thing, even when it cost you. And people mistook your kindness for weakness. But kindness is a strength, sweetheart, one most people don't have." I swallowed hard, tears sliding silently down my cheeks. I know the truth about Anna broke your heart. It broke mine, too. I watched her spiral. I watched the bitterness grow. I watched her turn every insecurity into blame she aimed outward. But what she did to you, and to those people, wasn't your fault. None of it was. He paused, voice wavering. I'm sorry your parents didn't protect you. They thought they were helping her, but they hurt you. Deeply. I'm sorry I couldn't fix that while I was here. My chest tightened painfully. But I want you to know something. You are not alone. You never were. And the moment you stepped into my office, I knew you would finish this. I knew you would be brave enough to face what they could not. He coughed, long and weak. You're going to rebuild your life now, without shame, without doubt, without the lies that tried to define you, and someday, you're going to help people the way you always wanted to. Because your heart is good, Emily, and the world needs good hearts. I covered my mouth, sobbing quietly. His voice softened even more. I love you, more than you will ever know. And I'm proud of you. I'm proud of every piece of who you are. Please remember that on the days you feel broken. Another pause. Tell the truth. Protect the innocent. And forgive yourself for trusting the wrong people. That's not a flaw. That's your greatest strength. The recording clicked off. I put my head down on the desk and cried harder than I had cried in years. Not because of grief, but because for the first time since he died, I didn't feel abandoned. He had left me exactly what I needed: his voice, his faith, his love. When the tears finally quieted, I played the message again, and again. Each time it steadied me a little more. Eventually, I closed the laptop and sat in the silence, breathing through the ache in my chest until it softened. The next morning, I woke with swollen eyes and a heavy heart, but a strange clarity settled over me like fresh air after a storm. I showered, dressed in a thick sweater and jeans, and drove to a small bakery I used to frequent with my grandfather on Sunday mornings. The bell above the door jingled. Warm light and the smell of cinnamon surrounded me. The owner, Mrs. Talbot, looked up from behind the counter. "Emily Carter," she said, smiling gently. "Haven't seen you in a while, sweetheart." I tried to smile back. "It's been a hard week." She nodded knowingly, her expression soft. "Sit down. I'll bring you something warm." As she set a plate of fresh pastries in front of me, another thought struck me hard enough to halt my breath. The victims. I had faced Anna. I had exposed the truth. But the people she stole from, the people whose faces had stared back at me from the USB, deserved more than numbers in a file. They deserved apologies, answers, acknowledgement, justice. My grandfather had left me the roadmap. It was time to follow it. I spent the next 2 hours mapping out each victim's address, family connections, and preferred means of communication. I wrote down what I needed to tell them and what paperwork I needed to provide. I printed copies of the relevant documents. By noon, I had 6 folders prepared, one for each person Anna had hurt, and I knew exactly where I needed to go first. I drove to a quiet cul-de-sac on the outskirts of the city. A small, white, single-story home sat at the end with a ramp leading up to the front door. The garden was neat. The wind chime on the porch tinkled softly. Walter Briggs. I walked up the ramp with my folder in hand. My heart pounded, but I didn't turn back. I knocked twice. The door cracked open. His grandson, mid-40s, tired eyes, looked at me. "Can I help you?" I swallowed. I'm Emily Carter." His face changed instantly, shock mixed with something like grief and something else. Kindness. He stepped back. "Come in." Inside, Walter was sitting in a recliner with a blanket over his legs, watching a small TV. His eyes lifted when he heard my voice. "Mr. Briggs," I said quietly. "I'm so sorry." He blinked slowly. "You're her," he whispered. "You're the girl from the papers." "I'm the girl whose identity was stolen," I said, "and I'm here to make things right." He nodded, tears shining in his old, gentle eyes. "I knew it wasn't you," he said. Your grandfather told me once you were good. I believed him." My throat tightened, but I managed a soft smile. I sat with him for nearly 2 hours, explaining what had happened, showing every piece of evidence, answering every question. He cried, I cried. And as I left his house, his grandson shook my hand firmly. "Thank you," he said, "for facing what most people would run from." I visited 3 more victims that day. Each visit broke me and healed me at the same time. By the time the sun set, exhaustion had settled deep in my bones, but so had something else. Purpose. That night, I sat at my desk again. I looked at the flash drive, the victims' files, the recording, and my grandfather's handwriting on the envelope. I whispered, "I'll finish this, I promise." Because justice wasn't only about exposing the truth. It was about restoring what could be restored, healing what could be healed, protecting those who had been hurt. That was the legacy my grandfather left me. And I would carry it forward, no matter how long it took. The sentencing hearing took place on a gray Thursday morning, the kind where the clouds pressed low against the city skyline, and everything felt heavier than it should have. I parked in the municipal garage across from the federal courthouse and sat motionless for several minutes, staring at the concrete wall in front of me as my breath fogged the interior of the car. I had told myself I was ready for this day, but the truth was more complicated. You can prepare for justice. You can't fully prepare for witnessing the consequences land on blood. I finally stepped out of the car and crossed the street. The federal building's glass doors reflected my face back at me, tired, pale, older somehow. Trauma has a way of aging a person faster than time. A security guard directed me through the metal detector with a polite nod, and I followed the signs upstairs to courtroom 3. Inside, everything smelled like varnished wood and paper. Rows of benches stretched across the room, half filled with people whispering in low tones. At the front, under the seal of the United States, sat Judge Eleanor Whitcomb, a woman I knew only by reputation. Sharp, seasoned, unflinching, the kind of judge who saw straight through excuses and pretty lies. I noticed Anna's attorney, a man in an expensive gray suit, flipping through notes at the defense table. Anna sat beside him. I hadn't seen her since the night of her arrest. She looked smaller somehow, her posture curled inward, hair pulled back too tightly, the orange jumpsuit a stark contrast against the room's polished wood. She didn't look at me, not once. Her eyes stayed fixed on the table in front of her, lashes fluttering in the fluorescent light. I took a seat in the second row, clutching the folder of impact statements the victims had entrusted me with. One by one, they had asked me to speak for them, and I had promised I would. They deserved a voice in the room where the truth would be carved into law. Agent Marcus Hale entered a few minutes later and gave me a small nod before taking his place near the prosecution's team. He looked steady, prepared. His presence grounded me more than I expected. A bailiff called the court to order. Everyone rose. The judge took her seat, adjusted her glasses, and opened a thick file. "United States v. Anna Carter," she said. "We are here for sentencing." My heart pounded so hard I felt it in my throat. The prosecutor began, detailing the charges: identity theft, wire fraud, elder financial exploitation, falsification of federal documents, interstate financial crimes. His voice was calm, controlled, factual. But then he described the victims: Walter Briggs, Diane Holloway, Henry Loomis, the Morris couple, Sophia Delgado, Eleanor Myers, and something in his tone softened. "These individuals were targeted because of their age," he said, "because they trusted an advisor recommended by someone they believed was honorable, and because the defendant counted on their vulnerability." Anna stared straight ahead, no expression on her face. The prosecutor continued, laying out the timeline my grandfather had built: the forged contracts, the shell companies in Arizona and New Mexico, the fraudulent transfers, the manipulated digital trail. When he referenced the confession recording, a ripple moved through the courtroom. Finally, he stepped back and said, "The government recommends a sentence of 17 to 20 years. The judge nodded once, her pen tapping against the file. Thank you. Defense? Anna's attorney rose. His voice was smooth, practiced. Your Honor, my client acknowledges the gravity of her actions, but she also struggled with lifelong feelings of inadequacy within her family dynamic. The pressure to succeed, to live up to expectations, contributed significantly to the choices she made. She is not a hardened criminal. She exploited seniors, the judge interrupted. Yes, but under emotional duress, she stole $2 million, the judge said. The attorney hesitated. She is willing to undergo financial rehabilitation, to receive counseling, to make restitution. Restitution? The judge repeated. The assets recovered came from her seized accounts, not voluntary repayment. He lost momentum, sat down. The judge turned to the prosecution. Victim statements? I rose when Marcus nodded at me. My legs shook as I approached the podium. I opened the folder, but when I spoke, I realized I didn't need to read from it. Your Honor, I said, on behalf of the 6 victims, I want to speak about what was taken. Anna shifted in her seat. Walter Briggs lost the savings he hoped to pass on to his grandson. Diane Holloway lost her trust in institutions she believed would protect her. Henry Loomis lost his independence for months because he couldn't afford the home assistance he needed. The Morris couple nearly lost their home. Sofia Delgado suffered panic attacks every night for weeks, fearing she'd end up destitute. And Eleanor Myers... My voice trembled. I steadied myself. She died believing I had betrayed her. The judge's expression softened. These weren't numbers, I continued. These were lives. These were elderly men and women who trusted the Carter family name. They trusted my grandfather. They trusted me. And their trust was stolen. I took a breath. And beyond that, my sister used my identity. She destroyed my credit, my reputation, my career. She let me believe I was failing. She let my family believe I was irresponsible. She let me carry a shame that belonged to her. The room was silent. I don't want vengeance, I said. I want accountability. I want the truth to matter, and I want every person she hurt to know they were not forgotten. I stepped back, hands trembling. The judge nodded gently. Thank you, Miss Carter. When the judge addressed Anna, the entire room leaned in. Ms. Carter, she said, you did not merely break laws. You broke trust. You exploited the vulnerable. You weaponized your own sister's identity. Your actions were deliberate, calculated, and sustained over years. The court finds no justification that minimizes these facts. Anna stared at the floor. Do you have anything to say before sentencing? Anna's attorney tapped her arm. For a long moment she didn't move. Then she stood. Her voice was small, thin, barely audible. I'm sorry, she whispered. I don't know why I did it. It wasn't enough, not for the victims, not for me. But it was the most she had ever acknowledged. The judge looked unmoved. I sentence you, she said, to 18 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release. You are ordered to repay restitution totaling $1.3 million, in addition to assets already seized. The room remained still. Anna's knees buckled. The bailiff caught her before she fell. Dad gasped softly. Mom let out a broken sob behind me. I didn't turn around. As the bailiffs escorted Anna away, she looked at me for the first time. Her eyes were wild with fear, anger, disbelief. Then she was gone, swallowed by the hallway. The courtroom gradually emptied. Only Marcus remained beside me. You did well, he said. Your grandfather would be proud. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. Outside the courthouse, the wind was icy. It sliced through my coat, but it also felt cleansing somehow, like the first breath after surfacing from deep water. My phone buzzed. A message from the financial attorney overseeing restitution. Funds recovered. Remaining amount covered by your grandfather's estate. All 6 victims will be compensated. I exhaled shakily. He had planned everything. Even in death, he had made sure justice could be carried through. I spent the next 2 weeks helping finalize paperwork, delivering restitution letters, and sitting with victims as they cried or held my hands or thanked me in quiet, trembling voices. Then one evening, while sorting through the final stack of documents in my apartment, I found another note from my grandfather, tucked between 2 folders I hadn't opened since the beginning. "Build something good, Emily, something that lasts." 5 words. 5 words that shifted everything. I sat there in the quiet, thinking about the office he'd left behind, about the elderly clients who trusted him, about the pain my sister had inflicted on them, and on me, and I knew exactly what I needed to do next. I went to the hardware store the next morning, bought paint, bought shelves, bought frames for photos. 3 days later, I reopened his office, not as a financial firm, not as a memorial, but as something new. A place dedicated to protecting seniors from fraud. A place dedicated to carrying on his fight. A place built from truth, not lies. On the first day, Walter Briggs and his grandson were the first to walk through the door. Walter hugged me. His grandson shook my hand. "Your grandfather would be proud," he said. And for the first time in months, I felt it. Not just the grief, not just the justice, but the beginning of healing. The beginning of something good. Something that would last. I stood in the doorway of my grandfather's rebuilt office, now the Carter Senior Protection Center, and let the late afternoon light spill across the newly painted walls. The place no longer smelled like neglect and dust. It smelled like warm pine, fresh paint, and something gentler, something like hope beginning to take root. The shelves held informational brochures on avoiding financial scams. The bulletin board displayed upcoming workshops. Framed photos of the 6 victims, smiling, alive, reclaiming their dignity, lined the back wall beside the dedication plaque to my grandfather. What I didn't expect was how quickly the center would become more than just a project. In those weeks after Anna's sentencing, it began to feel like a lifeline. Not only for the seniors who walked through the door looking for guidance, but for me too. Every day I unlocked this space. I felt like I was slowly stitching back the part of myself she had tried to tear apart. I was reorganizing the file cabinet when the bell above the door chimed softly. I straightened. Dad stood in the doorway. He hadn't called, hadn't texted, hadn't reached out since the day of the sentencing. Seeing him there, hands tucked awkwardly in his pockets, shoulders tense, made something in my stomach twist. "Emily," he said slowly, "do you have a moment?" I took a steady breath. "For a moment, yes." He nodded, stepping inside as if the floor might crumble under him. His eyes swept over the office, lingering on the framed photo of me shaking hands with Mr. Briggs at our reopening event. "You've done a lot here." "I had a model," I said quietly. "Grandpa built the foundation. I'm only continuing what he started." Dad swallowed tightly. "I know." He looked smaller than I remembered, or maybe I was just seeing him clearly for the first time. "I've been meaning to talk to you," he said. "Your mother and we're trying to make sense of everything." I crossed my arms, not unkindly, but firmly. "You protected Anna for years, Dad. You helped her hide what she was doing. You let me suffer for it." He flinched. "I know." "Do you?" I asked softly. "Because I need you to understand exactly what you did. Not just in theory, in reality." His eyes lowered to the floor. "You believed Anna because you wanted to," I said. "You dismissed me because that was easier. You let her use my name, my future. You let her ruin my career. You let me carry shame that belonged to her. And you never once asked yourself if I deserved better." He blinked rapidly, and I realized he was fighting tears. "I failed you," he whispered. "I failed you in every way a father can fail a daughter." Something inside me softened. Not enough to forgive him, not yet, but enough to hear him. He continued, his voice shaking. I kept thinking Anna needed protection, that she was fragile, that one wrong move would destroy her. But the truth is, I didn't see the damage she was doing because I didn't want to see it. Your mother didn't want to see it. We convinced ourselves that keeping the family intact mattered more than confronting what was breaking it. I looked at him steadily. The family was already broken. You just didn't want to face the cracks. He nodded slowly. You're right. Silence settled between us. Not angry, not cold, just real. After a long moment, he walked over to the dedication plaque honoring my grandfather. His fingers brushed the engraved letters. He was a good man, Dad whispered. He saw everything, even when we refused to. I stood beside him, not close enough to call it comfort, but not distant either. He trusted you, Dad said, more than anyone. He told me once that you were the one who would carry the truth forward when he no longer could. My throat tightened. I miss him. So do I. He turned to me, his face open, wounded. I know I have no right to ask for forgiveness, and I won't insult you by pretending this can be fixed with an apology. But I want you to know, I see you now. I see who you are. And I'm proud of you, Emily. Proud in a way I should have been all along. A tear slipped down my cheek before I could stop it. Not a tear of anger this time. Something gentler, something like release. I'm not ready to forgive you, I said quietly. But I hear you. He nodded, heartbreak and gratitude mixing on his face. That's more than I deserve. He left a moment later, the chime above the door ringing softly as he stepped into the fading light. I leaned against the desk, breath unsteady. The conversation had cut deeper than I expected, not because it reopened wounds, but because it offered something I didn't think I'd ever receive. A beginning. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, but the first, fragile step toward honesty. Later that afternoon, I finished preparing paperwork for a community workshop scheduled for the weekend. As I was stacking the handouts, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I hesitated before answering. Hello! A familiar voice crackled through the line. Strained, fragile, but unmistakable. Mom. Emily, she whispered. Can we talk? I closed my eyes. Mom, I'm at work. I know, she rushed. I know, sweetheart. I just need to say something. Her voice trembled in a way I had never heard. I was wrong, she said. I was wrong about everything. My breath hitched. For years, I convinced myself that Anna needed us more, that she was delicate, that she'd fall apart if the truth ever touched her. And you were strong. You always were. I told myself you didn't need the same protection. That wasn't protection, I said softly. That was abandonment. A broken sound slipped from her. You're right, she whispered. I abandoned you. I abandoned the daughter who did everything right, the daughter who trusted us. I let you walk through life believing you were the problem when you never were. I swallowed hard. Her voice cracked further. I let her blame you. I let her weaponize your name. And I was so blindsided by fear of losing her, fear of seeing her flaws, that I became blind to the damage she inflicted. I held the phone tighter. I don't expect forgiveness, she said. I need you to know that I see you now, Emily, truly see you, and I'm ashamed. Tears pricked my eyes, not from pain, but from the weight of truths finally spoken aloud. I'll think about talking, I said quietly, but not today. She exhaled a trembling breath. I understand. I hung up gently. The silence afterward felt soothing, not empty, not aching, just quiet. Healing takes time, and the truth doesn't erase wounds. It just stops them from festering. I locked the office and went home. When I walked into my living room, the sunset poured through the windows in ribbons of orange and gold. I sat on the couch and pulled out the last journal my grandfather ever wrote. I hadn't had the courage to read it before, but tonight felt right. The first page was blank. The second held 4 lines in his elegant handwriting. Truth breaks before it mends, but mending always follows. Pain carves space for purpose, and purpose is why we endure. I traced the edges of the words with my thumb. Maybe he'd known exactly how this path would unfold. Maybe he'd known I would need these words long after he was gone. Later that night, I drove to the hill overlooking the city, the same place where he used to take me as a child when the world felt too big. The wind was cool, brushing against my cheeks like a memory. I closed my eyes and imagined him standing beside me, hands in his pockets, quiet and steady as always. "I'm rebuilding," I whispered. "The right way. Your way." The wind rustled the grass almost like an answer. I stayed until the stars came out, until the city lights flickered below like a heartbeat. When I finally drove home, I didn't feel alone anymore. I felt guided, anchored, and ready for whatever came next. Not because justice was finished, but because healing had begun. The morning sun slanted through the blinds in soft, warm stripes when I arrived at the Carter Senior Protection Center to open for the day. For the first time in years, the weight in my chest felt lighter, still present, but no longer crushing. Healing never announces itself all at once. It arrives in small waves, in quiet shifts, in the simple act of unlocking a door to a place that once held nothing but grief and now held purpose. I stepped inside and inhaled the subtle scent of cedar and lemon polish. The office looked exactly the way I wanted it to look. Welcoming, safe, bright. I set my bag on the desk, powered on the printer, and opened the blinds. Outside, early walkers passed with their dogs. A runner jogged by with earbuds in. Life moved forward, unaware of the storms that had torn through mine. My grandfather's portrait hung above the main bookshelf, his eyes wise and warm. For a moment, I rested my hand on the frame. "Still guiding me," I whispered. "Every step." A soft knock at the door startled me. When I opened it, I found Walter Briggs standing on the porch with his grandson. Walter wore a navy sweater, his white hair neatly combed, his eyes twinkling the way they always did when he had something thoughtful to say. "Good morning," I greeted, smiling warmly. Walter chuckled. "We were in the neighborhood and thought we'd drop by to check on your progress." His grandson handed me a small paper bag. "Granddad made you his famous fudge. He said your grandfather always loved it." My throat tightened. "Thank you. That means more than you know." Walter shuffled inside slowly but steadily. "Your grandpa helped me so many times. This center, it's exactly the kind of place he dreamed of creating." I walked with him to one of the chairs near the front table. He sat carefully, looking around with soft admiration. "You've done good work here, Emily," he said. "You gave us our lives back. Not many people can say that." I sat across from him, hands folded. "I only finished what my grandfather started." Walter shook his head gently. "No, you did more. You brought the truth into the light. You rebuilt what was broken. And you didn't let bitterness consume you." I wasn't sure that was entirely true. Bitterness had brushed close enough to tempt me, but I had chosen differently, over and over. His grandson glanced at his watch. "We should get going, Granddad. You've got your physical therapy at 10. Walter stood, gripping my hand with surprising strength. "Thank you, dear, for everything." My eyes shimmered. "Take care of yourself." When they left, I placed the bag of fudge beside the framed photo of my grandfather. The symbolism wasn't lost on me. A reminder that goodness lasts much longer than cruelty, that kindness travels through generations in ways harm never can. By late morning, the center was bustling. 3 seniors came in asking to enroll in our new Stay Safe from Scams workshop. Another stopped by asking if I could help her check a suspicious email she received. I walked her through each step, the same way my grandfather had walked me through budgeting charts when I was 12. Gentle, patient, prepared. Around noon, the bell chimed again. This time it was my mother. She stood at the entrance with her purse clutched in both hands, her posture stiff, her face pale. For a moment, We simply stared at each other. "May I come in?" she asked softly. I nodded and gestured toward one of the chairs. She sat slowly, smoothing her skirt, her eyes scanning the room with a mix of awe and regret. "This place? It's beautiful," she whispered. "Thank you," I said. She took a trembling breath. "I'm not here to justify, or defend, or explain. I know any explanation I give would sound like an excuse." Her eyes glistened. "I'm here to tell you I'm trying." I looked at her, truly looked. The sharpness she often wore like armor was gone. In its place was something fragile, human, honest. "Trying to what?" I asked gently. "To learn what love actually means," she murmured. "Not the way we practiced it. Not the way we protected one child at the cost of another. I'm learning what truth costs, and what it saves." Emotion tightened my throat. I hadn't expected this. I hadn't expected anything from her. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small object wrapped in white tissue. When she placed it in my hands, my breath caught. It was my grandmother's silver locket, the one she always said would be mine someday. "I should have given this to you years ago," Mom whispered, "but I didn't see you. Not really. I'm ashamed of that." I held the locket carefully, its cool metal warming against my skin. "I don't expect forgiveness now," she said. "I only hope, someday, you'll let me earn it." My voice shook. "I can't promise anything yet." "I don't expect you to," she said. "Just don't close the door forever." She stood then, wiping her eyes. Before leaving, she touched my arm. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. "More than you know." When the door closed behind her, I sat for a long moment, the locket resting in my palm. The office felt heavier and lighter at the same time, full of sorrow, full of hope. Later that afternoon, I received a message from Agent Hale confirming that the restitution process was complete and that the victims had officially received their funds. My eyes stung with relief. My grandfather's planning, Anna's seized assets, and the small portion he had left me tied everything together. Justice wasn't just a verdict, it was restoration. By evening, the sun dipped low, spilling orange light across the office. I closed up early and drove to my grandfather's gravesite, a serene spot under a cluster of old cedar trees. The wind rustled softly through the branches. I knelt and placed the silver locket on the ground beside the headstone. "Your fight is finished," I whispered. "You can rest now." The air stirred, gentle and warm despite the cold. "I hope I made you proud." I stayed there until twilight settled blue across the cemetery, then stood, brushing off my knees. As I turned to leave, I glanced back one last time. There are moments in life that mark the end of a chapter. This was one of them. But endings don't always mean closure. Sometimes they mean beginning again. When I returned home, I lit a candle on my kitchen counter and brewed a cup of tea, the same chamomile blend my grandfather used to drink. I sat at the table, opened my journal, and wrote the final line of this chapter of my life. Truth hurt me, but it also freed me. A weight lifted from my chest. Later that night, as I curled under the blanket and listened to the soft hum of my home settling around me, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not perfect peace. Just the kind that comes when you know you fought for something that mattered, and that you honored someone who deserved more than silence. Before drifting to sleep, I whispered softly into the darkness, "Thank you, Grandpa. I'll carry this forward." And I knew I would. This story wasn't just about betrayal or justice. It was about rebuilding. It was about choosing truth when lies were easier. It was about reclaiming dignity, reclaiming purpose, reclaiming myself. And maybe, just maybe, someone out there needed to hear it too. If you're still listening, if you've stayed with me to the very end, then let me ask you this. Have you ever faced a truth that changed everything? A truth that hurt but ultimately made you stronger? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story touched you, if it reminded you of your own journey or someone you love, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it so others can find it too. Sometimes the stories we tell are exactly the stories someone else needs. And sometimes the hardest truths are the ones that finally set us free.